talking about the rest of the industry in a certain way, and talking about, let's focus a bit more on the independents. We know that it represents a very kind of a small portion of the big watchmaking cake. Nonetheless, within your top 50 brands, you do have a few players that are, I mean, their numbers are not so, I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, they're pretty impressive. Talking obviously the FP Journe, the BNF and so forth. Tell us a little bit about these guys.
Yeah, that's quite impressive.
H. Moser and so forth.
H. Moser, around the 36, 37 rank. It's quite impressive what those brands have achieved in the last few years. They managed to scale their business without losing their legacy, their DNA, not compromising what they stand for in terms of values. It remains to be seen of how far or how high you can go up with a brand like Moser. Is Moser a brand capable of going to 300-400 million sales? I don't know. I don't have the answer. I think it will take a lot of time and a lot of money reinvested in the brand. They do a very good job. The only questioning again, you start thinking is looking always at the same thing, but it is important. The secondary market at H. Moser, it's not where it would need to be to reassure their clients and aspirational clients that they are here for the long term. There, they really need to address that issue. François-Paul Journe, skyrocketing. Sorry.
Just regarding H. Moser a bit, but at the same time, I mean, they come up with timepieces, sometimes, whether it's a tourbillon, minute repeater, anything like that, at a price point which is much less than it would be in another with a big name.
True.
So maybe even if the second market is a little bit down, at least your entry into that world of, I mean, very qualitative watchmaking is more of a fair deal, I would say.
It is, and it's one of the strengths of this brand, besides building up that community. Edouard Mélan, the CEO, and his brother Bertrand, who is in charge of sales, they do a very good job. I'm sometimes getting invited again. Next disclaimer, I'm not working for Moser. They are just friends, not just. Edouard has been a long-term and loyal friend since many, many, many years. They do a very good job at entertaining that community.
Yes.
And when you are invited at a Moser event, you feel that it's easygoing. It's not like that enforced coolness. And I think that's one of the strengths, the accessibility in terms of price. Tourbillon at a very good price. But nevertheless, if you buy at a certain price, even though you're saying that it's a good value for money, yes, certainly. But even though I pay 50,000, I would like to think that I'm not losing 30 or 40% of the value. I'm not saying that it's happening on all the Moser watches and to that extent, but some of Moser watches but they are growing. They are near the 4,000 watches a year. So it's a change of paradigm. They are self-financed. Yeah. They are profitable. That's the most important thing. They are growing. They still have a lot of potential. I trust that they are taking the good decisions this year. I was promised that I would see extraordinary new products. The contrary would have surprised me, but we'll see. Probably at Watches and Wonders, they have already started.
Because they do have this capacity of coming very often with new products. I mean, they don't just stay there. Okay, we've had one. This is a one-hit wonder or whatsoever. I mean, they really. It's a continuous development phase with these guys, and I think the fact that their team is rather young. I mean, it's most of the management team and so forth. And I think that maybe they have a different type of energy.
They have
than
a good drive. They have a good drive. They need to. They became a little bit more quiet to
compared to some of the, yes. Compared to some of their communication,
yeah. But you know, it was.
But they
funny.
did that at the right time. It helped them stand out, and they were smart. They didn't have big budgets and things like that, and they got, I mean, that's right under the spotlight. Sometimes people appreciate, not appreciate it, but at least they gave them exposure, and now they can be a little bit more mature, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, that's the thing. But of course, you know, you can be pushing and the revolutionary young guy of the bunch, and then all of a sudden people will tell you, you know, now you're a grown up, so you cool down and you stop, you know, running around and making those funny videos with Edouard, but. It's the people who advise them and the management team, they were very clever at repositioning the brand where no one would have expected them, with a fresh young energy, and that's one of the very strong points about Moser.
Yeah, when they took over, I mean there had been already quite a lot of development made on the technical side, but I mean, people associated H. Moser as being more, I mean, a boring brand, if I say it very bluntly. I mean, this is a bit harsh to say this like that, but in contrast to what they've achieved, meaning taking it from there and making it indeed something cool. And this is quite remarkable. Without, I mean, the products are not exactly the same. I mean, they've evolved a little bit, but it's not radically different. But nonetheless, they managed to bring in all this coolness around the brand, the products, the way indeed they communicate and so forth. I think so. It's quite, yeah. It's also, you were talking before about those brands that should be, you know, that are kind of benchmark, that can be taught in business schools and things like that. I think the H. Moser case is an interesting business case too. Just my little thing.
Indeed, and. I'm preparing a book about branding.
Okay.
And Moser will be one of the chapters of that book.
Okay. Well, they deserve it.
Writing it with a young guy called Romain Millet, who is excellent, a lot more smarter than I am. That's not difficult. That's not setting the bar very high. He's very smart, a lot younger, and we are currently writing that book.
Okay.
It takes a lot of time.
Looking forward. All right.
Always new ideas. And yes, indeed, Moser is a very interesting case study. Yeah.
And then you were about to talk about another, I mean, he's the kind of
the godfather of independent watchmakers,
I mean,
Mr. François-Paul Journe.
Yes.
Interesting. It's another interesting case study because...
Absolutely.
2 decades, it was loss-making. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. Maybe they were making a little bit of money, but they had very, very loyal shareholders, sticking to the project, never putting any pressure on Mr. Journe to change anything.
I think that's kind of difficult.
To put pressure in?
I mean, you can try.
Yeah, it would be quite a challenge. Yeah, it would be quite a challenge. No, but Journe is just, it's one of my favorite independents, because the watches are so beautiful, the design is so unique, the whole branding is totally coherent, the narrative is very well done since the beginning. And finally, now since a few years, they are overshooting the independent market with new products. They are concentrating on limited edition with the boutiques, which are even more extraordinary products. No, overall, it's just a success story. It remains to be seen what the plans are in the long term. I wish he lives until 120, Mr. Journe. I wish you do. But on average, it doesn't go that long, unfortunately or fortunately. And then it remains to be seen what the next chapter will be, because when you're an eponymous brand, and the name giving person is not anymore around, then you need, to adapt a little bit the narrative.
But at the same time, I think the products, they have such identity.
Absolutely. And the brand exists.
Exactly. So
since the beginning, they built up a brand. Like at another kudos to De Bethune, another brand is not. They are not in the top 50. I wish they managed to join the ranks anytime sooner or later. But De Bethune also that feeling that you have not only a genius watchmaker, but you have a brand. That's very important with the narrative, with the values, etc. So that's Journe.
But you see, I think with De Bethune, with De Bethune, if you see watches from 15, 20 years ago, it was a little bit more, whereas
Definitely.
indeed since 5-10 years or 5 years, let's say, I mean, there is indeed some coherence, a crazy one, an unusual one, and so forth. But there's, whereas with Journe, I think it was always very straight.
Very aligned.
It was like there's not much deviation from his initial vision.
No.
And that's where the guy, I think, he's quite a genius.
Mr. Journe has a tremendous horological culture, knowledge. About the history of watches, and you see it and you feel it in his products. And he is, unlike some other independents, he's open to what watchmaking is today with the elegant.
For instance, imagine the success of this.
Yes,
it's crazy.
Crazy. And all those people telling me he's crazy when he launched it, he's crazy. Doing this will ruin his reputation, and this and that and that. But at the end, I look today, the prices on the secondary market are
it's like
skyrocketing, to say the least, because there are also people looking after that, so that the prices go up. But and the sales is just I have sometimes people of outside the watch industry asking me, Oliver, why can I get my hands on this and that François-Paul Journe watch? I say, well, because there are so few worldwide, and he has such a strong community of buyers. I mean, there are people who dislike the person, but the others, they just love him.
Well, he could have easily increased his production volumes. Not an issue whatsoever, but nonetheless, I mean, keeping it.
More or less. He does quite a few elegant. But on the mechanical part, he's quite stable. And it's totally, you see where the journey goes. That's why the watch collectors buy into this journey. And it's one of the very few success stories since the rebirth of serious mechanical watchmaking. We could name Frank Müller. We can name Richard Mille.
Yeah, that's interesting. In your report, I mean, Frank Müller is
declining.
Declining, but I mean, still, it's still there. I mean, the volumes are still quite. I mean, the turnover, at least, I mean, it's quite impressive. In the top 20, if I recall. Yeah,
it's always a surprise for people they are 22. It's always a surprise for people. They ask me, but how is it possible that Frank Müller is still at that level of sales? And there are many reasons to it, and the current, let's say, little bit the weakness is that on the branding side they could do a lot more. They could do a lot more. They do a lot of things which are a little bit out of fashion, to say the least.
I don't think they like to spend.
That's one thing probably, but on the other side, when you visit the manufacturer,
it's impressive.
And here, really, I want to make a statement. Again, the disclaimer. No, I'm not making disclaimer. I was invited. I had visited Frank Müller Watchland about 20 years ago. I was re-invited, I think it was last year, and I visited the whole manufacturer. It's just amazing, amazing. There are no other words. What those people produce in Geneva in their own premises, in-house. I visited on another day. I visited the dial manufacturer in the Journe, lost in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. Very nice place, very passionate people making only dials. I visited their atelier where they are making their own leather straps and rubber straps, etc. Extraordinary knowledge. The product deserves a lot of respect. Of course, there are all those stories, you know, don't want to mix that with the actual situation. No, but it's and creativity. The creativity on the product at Frank Müller, incredible. Too much, too much. When you go at the annual product launches, when you're at the end of the thing, you're like, wow, this was, you know, there are too many colors, too many models, too many sizes, etc. They should focus a lot more. Again, I'm giving advices, and I'm not, I haven't achieved that extraordinary success story that they have achieved, Mr. Sirmakes and his partner, Frank Müller, not my family. But they should focus, and they should put a lot more emphasis on their branding in the large sense of the word, in their narrative, and, you know, going a little bit more modern, more 21st century than 20th century.
I've seen they've done, I can't remember if it was last year or a couple of years ago, a bit more, some movies that were a little bit more edgy and things like that. So,
True.
Wow, a little revolution
And then
there.
and
It
then they stop.
Okay.
Yeah,
They say once in enough, once every 10 years.
I think if I were them, I would also advise them, you know, to tell that story of that entrepreneur, which Vartan Sirmakes is, but he doesn't like to talk about himself, and but he has kids now. That new generation, hopefully, Sassoon, his brother, sister, they should bring in a fresh energy, and hopefully, but still, they are still there. They are still selling. People always ask me, where do they sell their watches? Well, take a plane, fly to Asia, and you will see the power, the strength of Frank Müller, the brand. It's just incredible. You have monobrand boutiques, for instance, run by their partner in Asia, Sincere, which are just amazing. You know, it gives you a totally different brand perception than the one we have here.
Yeah, for sure. So in your report, I mean, you're going through 50 brands. Obviously, you must have done some research, a bit more. Many more of that. To finish this part of the conversation, because we still have one chapter, is regarding those top 50. Are there special brands that you would like to do some kind of special mention? I was thinking, for instance, of, I mean, Jacob & Co. is still going pretty strong. And they were very proud about it. They commented, did this big PR thing like that, and you see that it meant a lot for them.
At least I have a new good friend. Hello, Mr. Jacob. Thank you, and kudos to you and your team.
And the other one is interesting. I think is Christopher Ward. That's making it in the top 50 and things like that. Because I remember when they launched this, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, where they put a bit more emphasis on it, I would say. And they have also an interesting model because they're only selling direct. With a price point that is reasonable.
Yes.
I remember at the time, I mean, some watches were starting like, I think, 1,500 Swiss francs or something like that.
Even below.
Even below this. Tell us a little bit about them.
Christopher Ward, it came quite as a surprise to some people. that they joined the top 50, but they did a huge increase of their sales, which, by the way, as a UK company, it's a Swiss-made brand, but it's a UK company. They have to publish their numbers, and so anyone can look up the numbers. So at least there is no opaque, we are plus whatever percentage, but yes, what's the amount, we can't tell you. No, there it's totally clear and transparent. The sales model of 100% D2C is very interesting, very good, and it's telling a very compelling truth about our business, is that the get-togethers, the stupid, simple get-togethers where you have passionate people like you and me sitting around the table showing each other the watches, etc., that still works, despite digital, despite the metaverse, which came and went out as quickly as it came. That's very interesting, and Christopher Ward is putting a lot of energy, the people in the team, to travel around and talk to the people and then explaining why and this and that and that. And that's very important. That's what makes it unique, because he could buy for the same price a Tissot or a Frédéric Constant, to take some examples. And now they buy Christopher Ward because they met a guy who told them the story and why they did this and that product, etc. Kudos to them. Yeah. It's excellent product. Yeah. Excellent product, very innovative, very at accessible prices, interesting products. The weak point for me in this, that will be another one, another chapter, because it's a success story. The weak point is the narrative. When you go on their website, etc., for me, it's the one point where they need to improve. They need to put up some muscle. It's not coming over as very convincing. That's my perception. But apart from that, it's excellent. And it's the proof that with Frédéric Constant, Raymond Weil, Christopher Ward, etc., all of them in our top 50, that you can achieve, to some extent, quite a sustainable success in a price range where I would tell you, don't even dare to try to launch a micro brand. And they did, and they are successful. So there is a market out there. There are people buying watches at 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 or whatever. There are people out there. You have to convince them with a fresh and compelling narrative about your micro brand. And of course your products have to bring something new to the table.
Of course, yeah.
That is always the difficulty of those micro brands. Very often is that they start, and we could talk about my friend Thomas Bayot, who has also success. He's now rolling out, and I'm coming to that point. At the beginning, they all want to do 100% D2C. And they all make their price calculation based on that, because you don't have to spend margin. You just spend on your marketing activities, but no margin for the middleman. So you can be priced below your direct competitor from an institutional brand. The problem starts when you have saturated your market with direct clients, and then you start looking for the next ones. And the next ones, you need, you can't pick up everyone, because you can't be that same week in Tokyo and Los Angeles, and then it starts to become expensive. The next step is, toc, 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 Mr. Retailer, you just lost ABC institutional brands. I'm a replacement for them, tag team, bam, boom. But then you have to give him a margin. That's obvious. And then the problem starts, because then you have to recalculate if you still earn enough money to give him that margin to continue your other marketing activities. So that's the tricky point. And that's where Christopher Ward is so interesting, because they kept it to the 100% D2C. They have the whole margin, but they need to invest in the direct to consumer approach, which implies that you are reactive. But with artificial intelligence today, you have so many tools at hand where you can interact with your clients to a certain, and then they want to talk to you.
Interesting, very interesting. Okay, final chapter.
Yes.
Okay, because we've been talking about Swiss brands mostly. Okay, but there are other industries out there. And for the first time in your report, you acknowledge that, well, there could be some kind of potential threat in a certain way. Tell us a little bit about that, and we'll start with the obvious, because, I mean, we're with the Japanese watchmaking industry.
Yeah.
What does it represent?
It's, first of all, I shall start with this. This report is done for financial investors who want to invest in equity of listed companies for obvious reasons. And we are focused on Swiss-made or Swiss-owned brands and groups. That's the first explanation why Grand Seiko is being mentioned for the first time. It's not in the ranking. It's estimates that we are making. Grand Seiko is a serious player. And the very interesting point is that their history as a global brand is very, very recent. In fact, it was launched in the 60s as the high-end brand of Seiko. Obviously, they have another brand called Credo. That's another story about being coherent in marketing, which in this case is quite questionable. But anyways, so 1960s, they launch that brand. They consider that it's only for the Japanese market. And in 2010, they go to the US and they start opening up on an international level. And they start understanding that you can't do what you do in Japan just one-to-one and do it in the US or anywhere else in the world. So they are successful, but not that much. And then they need to adapt in the way they present products, the way the narrative is done. But the very interesting part about Grand Seiko, besides the products, which are very, very interesting in many ways, with high frequency, what they call the high beat, etc. The interesting part is that the brand territory is very unique. It's alluding to nature, to the Japanese nature, and they always come up with very spectacular dials, taking colors, surface treatments, which make their dials very unique and a very strong component of the product offering. That makes that brand so unique. And then finally, COVID, but they decide to come to Europe 2020. They open up a flagship store, Paris. That was a very, very strong statement. Place Vendôme, the place to be in Paris. And they have a flagship store also in New York, and they have London, in Tokyo, Ginza, in Kyoto. I think, yes, Kyoto. So, I think it's Kyoto. So they have a few flagship stores around the world, but they come to Europe only in 2020. And again, that learning curve that a European retailer doesn't necessarily work the same way the Japanese colleague works. So they need to readapt. They are very successful, very, very. Are there threats today? Yes and no. They do consolidated worldwide. We estimated about 50,000 watches and about 210 million Swiss. it's quite something. They would be around, I estimated that they would be around 27 in our ranking.
Quartz, mechanical, everything included.
Yeah.
Okay.
Grand Seiko.
Okay.
So it's an interesting product. Very bold design language for some products. Very bold. For others, to my taste, it could be a little bit more modern and refreshing. But other products are just beautiful. Both the movement architecture, and they were very smart because they learned a lot what the European and American collectors are cherishing, the finishing of the movement with polishing, engaging angles, etc. They had Philippe Dufour, the god of watchmaking. That's more of an irony than a real, but still Philippe Dufour is the one
in Japan, he's perceived as a living legend.
He is a living legend.
And he is a living legend.
He is the one who brought back the tradition of craftsmanship to do those magnificent finishing on movements that now every young Turk is promoting. Recep Recepi, Simon Brett, name them all over the place. Grand Seiko, interesting brand, very innovative in terms of movements. I spoke about the high beat. They managed also to always continue the auto quartz watches, which we in Switzerland gave up very soon. The Swatch Group had that technology, which they tried to launch at Omega and Tissot. We were not successful, to say the least, at least for Omega, because it's not that the product was not good. We didn't manage to explain to the people that it was the best of both worlds. And that's what Grand Seiko does so well, is to tell people, in fact, you have the best of both worlds. So you have the mechanical part, and then you have the quartz part, and that's the best you can have. They won the GPHG a few years ago with that wonderful, now I forgot the name, tourbillon with a force constante. Yes. I was very happy because I was sitting at the dinner then with the watchmaker who had made the movement. It was very interesting. It was a talking piece.
Yes,
very few pieces.
Because they only did 20 or 10 and 10, I think.
I think so,
It took them 10 years to develop.
Very few.
But very interesting piece, that's for sure.
And the competitors are Omega, Breitling, again, Rolex, etc. And it seems that in America and in Europe they are well perceived because they are seen as a trustworthy alternative to the main players that I just named.
But their watches are not particularly cheap.
No, they are not. No.
And when you're talking about some of these watches with those very artistic dials and things like that, some of them they go for, I mean, a crazy amount of money. I think I was really impressed. But overall, as a brand, are they gaining momentum? Are they on a positive dynamic?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. They're also gaining momentum because, first of all, they do a very good job. They are on a very, very unique brand territory. Yeah. They are not ashamed to say we're proud because we're Japanese, which is good. They stand apart from the rest of the Swiss watch industry. That's very good. But they are seen and accepted from the Swiss watch industry in a very positive way. That's very surprising. That's true, yeah. They are at Watches and Wonders. They participated in the GPHG
multiple times.
And no, that's good. They are part of the watch family. That's good. And yes, they have a very positive momentum, especially currently in the US. But there, any watch CEO is telling you that he's growing double digit, etc., etc. It's just that at the end of the year, when you take the numbers and you add up, say, okay, double digit, but what about the rest of the world? That's another, no, we don't restart the discussion. But Grand
It's
Seiko,
double digits after the comma.
yes, no, but the most of the people making a good work in the US currently, they are very, very successful. It remains to be seen if that over positive momentum in the US is here to stay. You know, at some point, and we have already seen the most recent export figures, even though you have to be very careful because there was this buildup of inventory due to those infamous punitive tariffs by Mr. Trump and his administration. So the build-up of inventory, and then you have to refill, but much later, etc., etc. So that's a distortion of what you can read from the statistic. And yes, probably the US will calm down at some point.
But I think with the US, also something that we didn't mention, but I think is interesting, is that as a whole, okay, it's the biggest market for Swiss exports right now, but at the same time, I mean, the US consumer pool is not a very well educated one. I mean, they know, if you ask people about watches, most of them would say Rolex, but they won't be able to tell you other type of brands and things like that. Then you have the savvy people, the guys that are collectors. I'm not talking the ones that are buying into independents, because independents are selling a lot to American collectors.
Absolutely.
But for the other kind of more mainstream but institutional brands that you mentioned, they still lack quite a lot of notoriety over there. I think. I mean, it's Rolex is really, I mean, has taken everything basically. So I think that it still represents opportunities for all these type of brands that we were just mentioning before. If there's a bit more awareness that is made around these people and things like that, and that people say, okay, well, watchmaking doesn't resume itself to Rolex basically.
Yes, that needs time, that needs education, that needs media to play the role as educator of knowledge. And yes, Rolex is over-dominant. If there is one market where they over-dominate the game, it's certainly the US. I mean, it's more than 40% market share of the luxury business there. It's just unique in any luxury product category worldwide. It's okay, you could come up with the example of the Montblanc writing instruments. They're also very dominant, etc. But compared to Rolex, it's not quite comparable in terms of size. So yes, Rolex is very, very dominant. It's I mean, anyone knows what Rolex is. And the other brands, their challenge is to increase the brand awareness against a over-dominant competitor.
They're complicated, yeah, for sure.
Breitling is very strong since ever, but then Omega is very successful in the US because they have invested massively the last 10 years to open up boutiques. They have a very successful e-commerce for the US, dedicated to the US market, and they have increased their brand awareness tremendously. So it needs time. It's a huge market. You need to invest substantial amounts of money. So yes, Grand Seiko, to come back to Grand Seiko, they are very, very successful in the US, but also in Europe and on their home market in Japan anyways. And then the second example that we brought, and that's not by coincidence, it's our Indian friends, our Indian friends from Titan. And they have ambitions. They are very strong on their home turf, but now they want to go global. They have tried, Titan has tried with a Swiss brand called Favre Le Bas. We know how it went, not very well, to say the least. Sorry, to be frank. And that brand was taken over by other Indian people, which is the number one retailer in India, Ethos. They have a Swiss manager, Patrick Hoffmann, and the Swiss team, and they do a good job. It will take time, but Titan on its side, they signaled that they have ambitions.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely.
They are still, if I have to compare, Grand Seiko is almost an established player. Titan is the new kid on the block.
So I mean, in Titan, they're saying that they were producing like 70,000 mechanical watches per year, but obviously not at the same price point than Grand Seiko. I mean, you can't compare them at all. And in terms of quality, I mean, it's obviously not the same product. But those, it's funny to put in perspective those 70,000 watches compared to, I can't remember, 13 million quartz watches that they produce per year. Okay, so it's a very, very, but it shows that, I mean, they know how to handle big quantities, let's put it that way. And I believe, they could expand in the near future, even though it's going to take time. And even though they're fast learners. What about Chinese brands? Is that an issue? Because we don't really hear about them. I mean, we hear about one that has been quite out in the public, Barons, I'm talking about them, that are being accepted this year at Watches and Wonder, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Some people are a little bit shocked by that.
Yeah, including me,
Okay.
Not by the fact that the Chinese brand is being accepted. I'm shocked by the fact that we refuse Swiss-made watch brands and that we let in a Chinese watch brand. That is, for me, very hard to understand. I think it's a very negative signal. It's not a smart way to federate the people. And they should be careful. They have a big competitor called Dubai Watch Week. Have you ever heard of that? They are growing and they are federating the people together. Watches and Wonders would be well inspired to take a little bit of that philosophy.
On the side, quickly, side note about the Dubai Watch Week. They actually, in their communication, said that today they're the biggest, they were the world's #1, the biggest world fair, watchmaking fair, because they had like 90 brands, something like that.
Yeah.
And whereas in Watches and Wonder, okay, now you have 60. And something like that. So they're already, starting to tease a little bit on the fact that we're the biggest.
It's good. Competition
But it's
is
good.
always
Competition
good.
is good, absolutely.
It's
but
always
it's just
good. They have a good. They have many positives for them. It's the nice weather. I mean, when you're in Dubai, can just step out, smoke a cigar. It's nice, and then everybody is in a better mood. It's very secure. Okay, I'm about currently that horrible happenings due to the war. But normally Dubai is a very, very safe place. You can walk around with a $1 million watch. No one is going to harm you. That's very positive, and that helps them. And you are outside, etc. And it's easy to meet each other. That's all the positives about the Dubai Watch Week. Watches and Wonders are still very, very important. It's happening.
And it must remain that,
Yes, but they have to open up faster. They have to accept faster. The place is there. I mean, when I hear people talking, yes, but we limit because of logistical issues. If you have those, I used to work in supply chain for 12 years. You know where to find me. I'll help you to figure out how you can accommodate 2 or 3 times as many brands as you have today. Okay,
just going to stack them up.
No, but there are many ways. There is enough space.
There's enough space. I mean, it's huge.
I always say Geneva has probably the best, worldwide, the best exhibition infrastructure. punto basta.
I mean, 10 minutes away
You
by walk
have
from the
an
airport.
international airport. You have a railway station just
Motorway.
in walking distance. The airport is in walking distance. You have the highway just underneath, etc. It's a 7 minutes train ride from the city center to the exhibition hall, and then you walk. That's good for your health. You walk a little bit, 5 minutes, and then you're at the premises. It's just extraordinary. It's extraordinarily well organized. Watches and Wonders, very, very well organized. Maybe it should be a little bit smaller. Some booths don't need all that space, I think. And then we could accommodate a lot more people and open up. They could,
we don't saying this for years and years and years.
We don't need to come back to the whatever 1,000 brands at Basel World, watch brands. But maybe, I don't know, 200 brands would be already better. That's the positive. Time to watches next door.
I mean, you
Excellent.
have 200 brands exhibiting in Geneva at that point, at that moment.
That's why I'm coming up with that figure. There is space there. And then there would be everyone at the same place. And the evening, if people want to have fun and party, they can go downtown. It's very near. It's a village.
It is a village.
Geneva.
Yeah.
It's all in almost in walking distance. So yes, they need really to come up. And besides, Dubai Watch Week, it's so very well thought through with the panels, interesting panels, the workshops, the interactions between the people. Excellent. Everything they do, kudos.
Absolutely. So I think we'll talk more about the future of the Chinese watchmaking industry. I propose you in the next episode. I don't know when that will be, but I think that's a subject in itself.
Before Christmas.
Before Christmas, for sure. Yeah. So I think my clepsydra is empty since quite a long time ago. So I know that we've spent a few minutes, let's put it that way. Yeah, probably went for a world record right now. So
yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Bravo to you.
Bravo,
exactly.
Bravo.
And we just never stopped. But I guess we could continue. That's the
For
sad
hours.
part. Yeah, that's the crazy sad part. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this and maybe even learned a few things. And it's always a pleasure to share as much information as possible about something we are passionate about. So thank you and see you real soon. Bye.
Viva watchmaking.
He
Thank
said
you
it.
for listening.